When clients say, "How much is it?" and you say, In this video, you are going to learn 4 highly effective ways to answer the question, how much is it? Hi, I'm Will Barron, founder of salesman.org, where in just 15 minutes, we'll tell you your selling flaws and then give you a personalized sales training plan so that you can fix them. Right, so when a prospect asks for the price, the most important thing to do is to stay in control of your emotions. Most people are taught from a very young age that money is the root of all evil. That's one thing they're taught. Next, they're taught that rich people are bad. And the final belief that people have about money is that discussing money, cash, people's wages, people's salaries is rude. This is what's drilled into most people's heads as children by their parents, and in fact, the ability to discuss money without all of this emotional baggage is a key sales trait of success that we actually measure with our own sales code assessment. And you can take a free version of this over at salescodeassessment.com, and there's a link in the description of this video. So with all that said, the first step in answering your prospect's pricing question is to make sure that you have your emotions in check. This is pretty simple. All you've got to do to make this happen is when you come to talk about pricing, when they ask you that pricing question, just stop for a second, take a breath, and just calmly share the price. Don't say, well, the price is X thousand dollars a month, but I can ask my sales manager for a discount. Don't do that. Just be calm and just tell them the price. Think of it like this. If you owned a little sweet shop and a child came up to the counter, you're probably looking down at them from above and they asked you, how much is this Mars bar or Snickers bar or whatever you get elsewhere outside of the UK? Well, you wouldn't get emotional. You wouldn't start talking faster and immediately offering concessions to lower the price because you're scared this person is going to walk off and not give you any money, would you? No. What you'd do is you'd say, that is £1, please, sonny boy. And then you'd hold out your hand and you'd wait for them to pay you. The prospect would ask how much the price is. You'd tell them what the price is directly with no fluff. And then you'd just shut up and expect them to pay you. This is the emotional state that you need to be in when discussing pricing with potential customers. And this leads me on to point number 2. And I alluded to this in the first tip. If step 1 is calmly sharing your pricing, then the second step is just learning to shut the hell up and to wait for the prospect to respond to you. Sure, in this moment, there's likely a little bit of internal turmoil going on in your brain. You're going to be reminded of being 12-year-old and asking that girl or boy out, and that moment of both hope and fear before he or she tells you to get lost and they run off to play with their Pokemon cards or play Pogs or whatever's popular with kids right now. But until the prospect responds to the pricing that you've shared, you've no idea whether they're going to say, wow, that is incredible, and Will, you're my hero, thank you for sharing the pricing with me. Or, maybe they're going to say, Will, we need to do something about the numbers here. So, as hard as this is, it's easy for me to say it on a video, right? As hard as this can be in the real world, you've just got to shut up and wait for the prospect's response. Next, I want you to go into your pricing conversations with a BATNA. Yes. Now, I know I'm spending a lot of time in the studio putting all this content together for you, Sales Nation, but I haven't gone completely mad. A BATNA is a real thing. So it stands for Best alternative to a negotiated best alternative to a negotiated agreement. A bit of a mouthful. And this idea of a best alternative to a negotiated agreement was put forward by William Ury, who I interviewed on the Salesman podcast quite a few years ago now. In a nutshell, William shared that you should always go into a negotiation with a backup plan, or as he calls it, a best alternative to a negotiated agreement. For sales professionals, this enters a conversation after the last 2 points have been concluded. So you've shared the pricing with no emotion and you've shut the hell up. Only then, if the prospect completely rejects your offer, should you bring out your BATNA. For example, if I'm selling salesman.org memberships to a large organization and they just don't have the budget to jump in right away, and I share them my offer, I shut the hell up, and they say, well, I just can't do it right now this quarter, then I'm going to use my BATNA. And this BATNA could be to pay for a sales code assessment for each of their sales team, and then for the ones who receive perhaps the worst score, or even the best score, whichever way around you want to look at it, we could get them a salesman.org membership first. Of course, then my goal is that the first group of individuals that jump into salesman.org that have that membership, that use it, well, they see massive improvements in their selling performance after just a few weeks, at which point they start telling their team and everyone else gets brought on as well. At which point I've used a BATNA, but I've still achieved the original selling result that I wanted. So to visualize what BATNA is, we just need to draw this out. So here we have the buyer's range of acceptable outcomes and also the seller's range of acceptable outcomes as well. And usually, right about here, we have some overlap. So this is our BATNA. This is where our BATNA has to exist. So for any large sales negotiation where you know you're going to be talking about pricing with a prospect, always go into the conversation with a BATNA. And the final way to potentially deal with a prospect asking about pricing is to let them determine what price they want to pay. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this, so don't use this to avoid being direct and assertive about your pricing, as we've discussed so far. But when you allow your buyer to choose their own pricing with the following tactic, with the following formula, immediately you give control over to them. You give the control of the sales process over to them in an instant. Now, this is not a good thing because you're giving control of the sales process over to the prospect right at the moment where they probably need your help to navigate it. What I mean by this is that the prospect likely doesn't understand your pricing. They don't know the return on their investment that you're going to offer them yet. So when we're in control, what we usually do to get them through this part of the process is to give them a fixed price and then explain the value behind it and why it is a great offer for everyone involved. Then you can both agree on the value and then you can exchange value, right? The cash for your product, service, resources, whatever it is. But when you let the prospect choose their own price, all of the variables that you've built in the sales process so far instantly get rocked and turned into just random numbers. They now choose the value that you're offering them, the amount of it, the value that's going to get exchanged. This is why I don't like it, because of course they're going to just drill you down on price. They're going to take everything they possibly can from you. But with all of that said, there is a place for letting the prospect choose the price. So if you don't know their needs yet and they're demanding pricing from you before they're willing to talk to you, before they're willing to continue the conversation so you can do some discovery from your side and get them the best deal possible, well then the strategy of letting the prospect choose the price is not unreasonable. So to allow the prospect to choose their own pricing, instead of saying, hey, a salesman.org membership is $1,295 for each team member, and then shutting the hell up, you could, for example, say, for a team your size, it usually costs between $25,000 and $35,000, depending on our customers' needs. So here we're giving the prospect a range of pricing and allowing them to go, well, our budget fits at one end or the other, depending on what value you're going to offer me. One advantage of allowing the prospect to set their own price by giving a vague answer to the original pricing question is that you give yourself the opportunity to then upsell the prospect. You can upsell more easily here as you've now anchored a higher price point in their mind. So you have the opportunity to sell the budget option if the prospect is tight with their money, or you can demonstrate the higher value throughout the rest of the selling process after you've had this pricing conversation, and you can close that larger deal because, again, you've anchored that potential option in the mind of the buyer. With all that said, make sure to click subscribe if you want to learn more about the science of anchoring and pricing specifically, because I've got a video coming up on this within the next week or so. And so with that, there are the 4 tips to deal with the how much is it pricing question. Leave a comment below if you have any strategies for dealing with this question that you want to share with Sales Nation. And with that, I'll see you in tomorrow's video.